Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of the Accredited Investors Only podcast presented by Accredited Life. I am your host, Peter Neill. Thank you so much for joining me today for another really amazing episode. We have a great guest lined up for you, great conversation. But before we get into that, I always like to ask, are you living your accredited life? And I want to talk to you and share some things with you today that I think will maybe help you in that process and in that journey of living your accredited life. So, one of the things when it comes to investing, when it comes to passive investing, active investing, and just life in general, we're going to need to deal with other people, whether that be through relationships or partnerships. Really, at the end of the day, a partnership is really just a relationship on a whole nother level. We're going to have relationships with other people in order to get the things that we want, in order to leverage their expertise, their knowledge, their strengths, and things like that. It's a very important aspect to living the accredited life and investing in general. As a real estate investor, I've had all kinds of different relationships and partnerships, and right now in my company GSPREI, I have two main business partners, and then a lot of people on the team and a lot of different relationships that we nurture and manage, and that do things to help the business and be able to execute and do what we do on a daily basis. So, I want to share with you a few kind of requirements in building a really good partnership, building a really good relationship, because I really think this is going to help you to live your accredited life. I'll do that, and then we'll hop right into the interview. So, first thing first is alignment. In order for you to have a good relationship, a good partnership, it's so important that there's an alignment in goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and alignment in values and morals and the way that what matters to you, the way that you show up in the world, the way that you live your life, all those kinds of things. They just the value set that you live by. It's important that there's an alignment between what it is for you and what it is for the other people that you're in relationships with or partnerships with. There needs to be alignment there. And then, just kind of greater aspect to it too, the vision and the mission to what it is you're looking to accomplish out of the business or the investment or the relationship in general. There needs to be an alignment in the vision to where it's heading, and to some degree, how it's going to get there, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that can come in with the goals and the strategy and the planning and all that kind of thing. There needs to be alignment there. There needs to be things that you can connect on and relate with and share in common in order for it to work out, and especially for it to work out successfully in the long run. And then work ethic is obviously a very important part too. Is your work ethic aligned, or is everybody on the team? Is everybody in the relationship? Do they understand and know what part they play, and are they all going to work as hard as one another in order to get there? Because if you don't, chances are over time you feel like one person's kind of dragging the weight of others, then that's going to be a problem and cause some friction and just some issues in the relationship and the partnership as time goes on. So alignment on many, many different levels is a very important requirement to a successful relationship and a successful partnership in your investing and in so many aspects of living your accredited life. Communication, having clear, honest, frequent, transparent, open, good quality communication that you feel like you can have a conversation, you can talk to one another, you can share challenges, you can celebrate successes, all that kind of stuff. Really good communication is key, obviously, to any relationship, especially when it comes to growing a business, when it comes to executing on an investment strategy, executing in a business and a plan, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, works the same way overall, and just living your accredited life and the relationships you have with your friends and your family, with coaches and mentors and your CPA and your whoever else is on the team, whoever else is kind of helping you to live that full picture of what accredited life and what that means to you. So communication obviously is key to all of that, and it's a requirement. Respect is another one. So respect for each other's roles, So what each person does, what that does to the overall picture, that's such an important aspect to a strong relationship, to a strong partnership, to strong teams, that nobody necessarily is pulling more weight than others, that you can see the value in what every single person does, why they're doing it, what it does to lead to that vision and that overall mission, and have the achievement of it over time and the success. There has to be respect. There has to be mutual respect on an individual level, on a personal level, on a business level. You have to have respect for one another. You have to treat each other with respect. Such an important part of a long term successful relationship of any kind, and especially a business relationship, a partnership, and in investing. So, another thing is appreciation. So, in line with respect, you have to appreciate what the other people are doing, their strengths, the role that they play, like I said, in achieving the overall, vision and mission and all that kind of stuff, and the success. You have to appreciate, you have to find ways to show your appreciation, and and just, it's really in line with respect. Respect and appreciation, I feel like, are to some degree, they're different, but at the same time they're on a similar level, in the sense that I think it's easy sometimes, if you not to put you got to put yourself in the other person's shoes and see what they're doing from their perspective, the challenges that they face on a daily basis, everything that goes into what they're doing, and have appreciation for the fact that they're doing what they do, because that allows you to do what you're doing. Another part of it, kind of in line with respect and appreciation, is understanding. So, understanding what that person does, taking the time. There's a lot of different reasons it's important. Obviously, a successful team, a successful partnership, for the most part, everybody's going to stay in their lane. They're going to do what they do and do it very well. And when you combine all of that together, that's what leads to a successful outcome, a successful partnership, relationship, that kind of thing. But having a really good understanding of what everybody does, what goes into all of it, that's going to lead to respecting them. That's going to lead to the appreciation. That's going to lead to better communication and alignment, all that kind of stuff. The understanding is so key to it, because a lot of times I don't think, sometimes as in relationships and partnerships, you don't understand all the things that somebody else does, all the work that goes into it, the time, the challenge of it, the difficultness of it, you name it, all of that goes into it, because you don't maybe do it because it's not in your lane, it's not what you do every day. It's important to understand what the other people do, what their role is, why they do it the way that they do it, all that kind of stuff. Dig deeper, ask questions, good communication. All these things are going to help to get to that point. But understanding is such a crucial part to all the other pieces that we're talking about. And then loyalty and commitment. I think this is also a very important role in creating a great long-term relationship, a great partnership, where you're loyal to one another, you're committed to the vision, the mission, the roles that you play, all that kind of stuff. That's what leads to long-term success in so many different ways, especially during the hard times. It's when things are going well, when everything's on point, all the stars are aligning, it's just everything's easy. It's easy then to be loyal. It's easy then to be committed. It's when the challenges come up, when you have to make decisions, when you have to operate, when you have to do everything that goes into executing the business plan. And like I said, this isn't just about real estate and relationships and partnerships and dealing with people on the team and all that kind of stuff, but this is in life in general, with your family, with your friends, just anybody in your life. You have to, during the hard times, what gets you through the hard times is really, what is the most important thing at the end of the day. When things are easy, I mean, that's one thing. Anybody can operate at those times. But it's when you fall down, it's getting back up, it's shaking yourself off and getting back into the fight, getting back into the game. That's what's most important. And when you're aligned on the values and the goal, when you're communicating well, when you have respect for one another, when there's an appreciation, when there's an understanding, all that stuff leads to builds loyalty, it builds commitment. It's such an important aspect because this is not the kind of business, and just in life in general, we don't want to have to, we don't want to be burning bridges, right? I think a lot of people say that from a burning bridges standpoint. You never want to burn bridges. I think there's a time and a place, right? To some degree for some people that you just need out of your life for different reasons and stuff like that. So I'd say never say never. But at the same time, if we want to build long-lasting relationships and partnerships that are going to help us to just help overall bring us into our accredited life and everything that we talk about on this podcast. So that's it. That's what I have to say for today. Kind of my tips to living the accredited life. Like I said, relationships, partnerships, such an important aspect to it on every single level. Yeah, and obviously even a personal level with a relationship from yourself. I mean, all these things we talk about it all the time with growing your foundation, and all these things internally, being committed to yourself, being committed to living your accredited life, understanding what you want, appreciating what you're going through, the challenges, the successes you've had, respecting yourself, respecting the process and where you're at in it, communicating well internally with how it's going on, what you need help with, what your goals are, what your vision is, all that kind of stuff, and then having all that alignment. That's everything we talk about in living the accredited life as a whole, right? So there's so much to this. As always, we can take it further. Join on our website, accreditedlife.com. Reach out to me personally. Let's talk about it. This is such an important aspect. We could talk about it all day, but I want to get into the interview. We have a great interview lined up with an amazing guest. His name's Kenneth Gee. So Ken, he is the founder and managing member of KRI Partners. That's a real estate, private equity, and investor education firm. He has more than 26 years of real estate, banking, and private equity experience. So he comes to the table and to this interview with a lot of experience. There's a lot of great stuff to talk about with Ken. Throughout his career, he's been involved in transaction value of over $2 billion in acquisitions, management, and the financing of various multifamily real estate projects. Ken has a very diverse background. He was a CPA with Deloitte & Touche in their tax and M&A practice. He had major clients in private equity and real estate during his time at Deloitte. He was in commercial lending prior to being with Deloitte. And before that, he was certified Cessna Pilot Centers, owned and operated several certified centers for that, and trained pilots for the Delta Connections program. So that's awesome. We have so many great things to talk about with Ken. So without further ado, let's get right into that interview.
You're listening to the Accredited Investors Only podcast, presented by Accredited Life.
All right, Ken, welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How about you?
Awesome. I'm a little bit under the weather. I got a little sinus thing or something, but stuff like this always energizes me. So I'm very happy to be talking to you. So how about we start with you introducing yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Ken Gee. As you know, I'm the founder and managing member here at KRI Partners, and I've been in this real estate business for 27 years.
Awesome.
Most of our deals have been in Cleveland, and now in the last 15 years, primarily Florida.
Oh, okay. Very nice. So what brought you into the real estate space? It's been a long time. Do you remember?
I actually do. Yeah. So grew up in Toledo. I'll tell you the story briefly, but I grew up in Toledo, got my undergrad at University of Toledo, went to Cleveland, became a commercial lender for 5 years. All my clients, customers, did a lot of real estate investing. And none of them really wanted to listen to what I had to say because they wanted to talk to their CPA. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went to school at night at Case Western Reserve University, got my master's degree, became a CPA.
Nice.
And 7 years there at Deloitte, doing on the tax side, doing a lot of M&A work, transaction planning, due diligence, all this stuff, the fun stuff. But again, the Cleveland office at Deloitte had a massive real estate practice. Like if I told you the names of these people, you would know them. They're household names. And they obviously made an insane amount of money in real estate. And so everything was cool. I wanted to rewind. My family was really, really young. In fact, my daughter was an infant. I would do her middle of the night feeding. So I imagine you're a CPA working 70 hours a week. It's ridiculous. And the only time I got to spend with my daughter was her 3 a.m. feeding. That was cool until I realized I'm an idiot, because that's not cool. That's not how you should spend your time with your family. And then I went on this mission of solving that problem because I didn't want my family to grow up without me. I said, man, I mean, for the last at least decade, more than a decade, I'd been surrounded with people that had made a lot of money in real estate. Maybe I should go figure that out. Bought 3 deals, sold them 3 years later, made $500,000, and
Wow.
realized that was on the side. I'm like, this is it. This is what I got to do.
Yeah. Now, how did you get the confidence, or to kind of to do those initial first deals? How'd you educate yourself? I'm sure there's a lot of investors, accredited investors, especially maybe on the W-2 on the income side, that could maybe learn something from that part of your story.
Yeah. So remember, 27, 28, now 29, whatever years ago, there was no podcast like this. There was no training programs, nothing. Well, there was one, Carlton Sheets. You know that now?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, Carlton Sheets, no down payment system. So I did that system. It was all single family. That isn't where I ended up, but and I went to apartment association meetings. Like, I was committed, right? I had to solve that problem. And so those are some of the most boring things on planet Earth. But what I tried to do was to meet the person who was lecturing.
Okay.
So if it was an attorney, I did my best to get to know these people, property managers. It was really important. And that's how I learned. It took me a very, very long time. Now that first deal, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. You realize that it's really stressful doing your first deal. So I learned as much as I could. Remember, I was a CPA and lender, so I kind of felt like I know a little bit, but man, when you sign on a big mortgage back then, everything was signing personally. I'm like, if I screw this up, my house is gone. I just felt like everything was going to go away. I was risking everything. And so what I did was I hired an attorney, one of those guys that I met at the association meetings, paid him $3,000. Back then, that was a lot of money. He owned about 4,000 units, and I just needed him to kind of bless the deal. I'm like, say, somebody here, I needed that validation.
Yeah.
But even through that, it was really, really stressful. And he gave me the validation I needed. He said, Ken, this first deal, you'll probably make $100,000 over the next 3 to 5 years. And I was like, are you serious? Like, that's a lot of money, man. Obviously we did better than that, but that's how I tried to resolve. And, I remember back then, I mean, that first deal, I literally felt like I had a golf ball in my throat. Really scary. I'm a pretty risk averse guy, and to think I'm risking literally everything to do this, it was stressful. And he did help me resolve some of that stress.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, you bring up a really good point, and I talk about it a lot. My introduction to real estate was kind of in one hand was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the other was Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret. And I thank God every day that was kind of the introduction, because I think the mindset side of the business is equally as important as knowing what you're doing on the operational side and the finance side and all that kind of stuff. You got to have your head on straight. So what was it that kind of got you past that over time? And I'm sure a lot of it I'm sure it's probably self-explanatory, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. What happened to me, now I realize it took me a long time to really understand looking back, I really knew nothing about this first deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I really didn't understand how you make money in real estate. Now that's kind of embarrassing, because most people think, how could you not? You're a CPA, a commercial lender, but that's not what they teach you in CPA school.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
They teach you debits and credits. So I didn't understand. So what happened is every single time I learned a new lesson, my confidence grew. That first deal was like massive. I mean, the learning curve was massive. And, thank God I was able to get through it and make money, because that's what we help people get into the business now. And I will tell you, you're right. That's what stops people. They know they don't know, and they're scared.
Yeah.
But rightly so. I mean, you could lose a lot of money in this business.
Sure.
And so we know that if we can teach them, if they can understand what should happen next and what's going on and how they're going to make money, they'll act, they'll do it. Same thing with investors. If investors understand how these deals make money and why they make money, then their confidence is going to soar. Why? Because they're going to be able to vet one guy over another.
Yeah.
They just will, because they understand. What does Warren Buffett say? Never invest in anything you don't understand.
Yeah.
That's what I want investors to do. We're on a mission to educate investors to help them make better decisions, because I don't want them losing money either.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to talk about there. Before we get into that, talk to me about the evolution of Ken over the years. So going from those first 3 properties, sounds like they were single family, and then no, they weren't. Were they? Okay. So talk to me about that, and then how you've transitioned or how you've evolved over the last 27 plus years.
Yeah, a lot. I'll try to abbreviate this, but those first 3 deals. Remember, I want you to think back to where I was. I was working at Deloitte, working a ton of hours, and I couldn't buy a single family home. First of all, I was scared. I couldn't figure out how to make money because I couldn't figure out how to price it right. Secondly, there was no chance I was going to go there on the weekend and paint a unit, fix a toilet. I mean, first of all, I didn't know how. And secondly, I mean, there was no way I was going to pull more time from my family. So I actually bought, my first building was 28 units.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I felt like I could run it like a business. And that's what happened. I had a lady named Joyce. She lived there. She kind of helped me show units and schedule maintenance and collect rent and all that stuff. I could literally run it like a business. That's why I migrated to multifamily right out of the gate. And thank God I did, because, it would have really, I feel like, I know a lot of people that do single families and they want in multifamilies because it's a grind, right? It's a job. Doing single family flips is a job.
Yeah.
It's not a longer term investment. So now, first 10 years we spent in Cleveland doing smaller deals, mostly our own money, right? I think it's important, if you're going to ask me or ask you to give me money, that I should at least have a clue what I'm doing. At least that's how I viewed it. And
Sure.
so I earned for 10 years on my own money in a really hard market. I mean, Cleveland's a tough market. And only because people are not moving into Cleveland. It's generally population moving out, not massively, but it's not that good demand supply setup. So about 15 years ago, I said, man, we're doing okay in Cleveland. What if we actually go to an area that people want to live, like Florida? And I like Florida. I like sun. There's a lot of reasons to like Florida. So 15 years ago, we started that process of ramping down Cleveland, ramping up Florida. And I mean, that's a major evolution, right? To go from these smaller deals. And then we started syndicating. Now we've been doing this a long time. We're on our fund number 4. So we pre-raised money now. We've got $16 million in the bank to deploy right now that we're trying to deploy. So there, as you can see, there's been a real serious evolution. And I think it's kind of typical for somebody, a real estate career. That's kind of usually how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of answered the question, but I'll ask it anyway. What was it that led you to the Florida market, and then like kind of take a little deeper on why and just how you were able to get your bearings there and grow your portfolio there. Do you still live in Cleveland now, or?
I do, yeah. So our back office, so Cleveland's an owner-operator town because the third-party management world never grew up here. Why? Because there are very few people that invest from outside of Cleveland into Cleveland. So there's no reason for this big third-party industry. So we learned how to manage from the very beginning. And so it's just, remember, I had some private equity experience from Deloitte. I knew about what it meant to raise money and syndicate and do funds and all that sort of stuff. But I also knew that Cleveland was hard. Like we were never comfortable holding something long-term in Cleveland. First of all, the stock is very old. The inventory in Cleveland is very old. And so I don't like holding things long periods of time because, I mean, eventually something's going to get you, right? Something big inside the walls, under the ground, something like that's going to really,
Yeah.
So when we moved to Florida, it was a huge challenge because think about this. There's a lot of rich people in Florida. Everybody wants to buy apartments in Florida because they just do. Everybody says they want to grow 1,000 units and so on. But here's what most people don't do. They don't stick with it. I just kept going and going and going and flying there and touring and getting to know the brokers. Then in 2018, we opened up third-party management in Florida because we felt like the management pool down in Florida sucked. That's just what we thought. We weren't wrong. I mean, there's not a lot of good managers. So we developed an incredible relationship with the brokers because they would send us their clients. We would help their clients be successful. And they had a happy client that they could go sell the property, make money. So we really developed a deep relationship with those brokers. That is now, we don't do third-party management much anymore. We have a couple of clients that we've hung on to, but we don't do it anymore. It's just a tough business. But what we have is an incredible relationship with all these brokers. And we have $16 million now to deploy on fund number 4. You can see now how over time, this business is about people. Everywhere you go, every business is always about people. This is no different. And those brokers now know that we'll close. They know we're not going to jerk them around. They know that, they're going to get it on the turn if they get us a deal. So that's kind of how it's evolved. It took a long time though to get people to take you seriously. And that's the mistake people make when they go to Florida. They kick the tires for about 6 months and they're like, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to get a deal here. And they leave. And I didn't leave. So now here we are. We're getting deals.
Yeah. It sounds like you've been there for a long time. So it's I'm sure you've felt the rising tide over the last few years, where there's been a lot of how has the Florida market evolved since you first entered it to where it is today?
Yeah, I mean, it continues to perform. So one of the things that's important in this business is that you have discipline. You've got to have discipline, right? So when we go into a deal, we need close to even leverage, and we want $200 to $300 in upside. We just don't negotiate that, and it's not hoping and praying that inflation will give us to us. We believe it's there on day one. So that business model, if you think about it, works. Doesn't matter where you're at in the cycle, it works, even if rising interest rates, right? Because what happened, and the other thing that we're very careful about is managing debt, because I lived through 08, 09. I know what debt problems look like. We don't want to have anything to do with those. So when you add all these things together, it really comes down to discipline and not getting FOMO. And that has served us well. We don't do as many deals as others do, but our goal is I don't even want to do one bad deal, right? If I think it's going to have a problem, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah, so having a very strict buy box has served you well over the years. I love what you said about entering the space through the property management first. How is probably self-explanatory answer, but how has that helped you? In the early days, when you first found those initial properties that you invested in yourself.
Yeah, you're talking about in Florida or in Cleveland?
Yeah, for Florida.
Yeah. So I want you to think about this. If you and I, let's say you're a broker, and every time you and I interact, we're kind of negotiating, right? And that's sort of a little adversarial relationship, right? I mean, we handled it well, but now let's pretend like I go and I stand next to you.
Yeah.
And I say, Peter, listen, you send me your client. We know how to manage. We're going to make sure your client's successful. And we're gonna do our best to make sure that client gives you the deal on the turn, right? Because then they can make money. And when you think about that, I'm on your team now.
Yeah.
And you develop a level of trust that you didn't have before, because I legitimately am looking out for your interests as well. I mean, I look out for my clients, but I look out for your interests. And Ken's not gonna hurt. Ken's got a moral compass that he just doesn't deviate on, right? And so now that I'm not managing your clients' properties anymore, that relationship doesn't stop. The same person with the same moral compass, and what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. And so that's really why and how that relationship has been so beneficial. I probably didn't, I would love to sit here and tell you that I had that all planned out in the beginning. That isn't what happened.
Kind of evolved that way.
Yeah, it did evolve, right?
Yeah.
It really has been massively helpful, I believe.
Yeah, and you weren't competing with them, because do you need to have a broker's license to manage a third-party property in Florida? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a broker in Florida, but I've never tried to take some of
those transactions or anything like that. Yeah.
No, I don't want to live. No way. That's tough business, and I have no interest in it.
Sure it is. Interesting. So So talk to me about how you got into the fund side of the spectrum. I'm assuming you did individual deal syndications for a little bit prior to that. How was that? How was the golf ball in your throat there? Because the fund management side is a little different, right? I mean, maybe we could talk about that too, like kind of the differences. But
Yeah.
how'd you make that initial leap and why?
Yeah, so the golf ball went away after the first deal. That's what I always tell everybody. Do your first deal. It gets so much easier.
Sure.
So I want you to think about, put yourself in our shoes. We were syndicating in Florida, right? So when offers come in, there's 20 syndicators lined up, all trying to get the same deal. Well, how am I going to differentiate myself?
Yeah.
Price. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay. We'll give you a shot then, but you have to pay up. Okay. I did that. And we did really well. But as you know, raising, I don't know, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million in 45 days is really stressful. That creates a lot of new golf balls, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I said, you know what? You know how to do this private equity thing. Go raise them. You've got a track record now, 10, 15, 20 years.
Sure.
Like, this makes sense. Go. So what we did is we had a company called Veravest vet our track record. And they did. They audited our whole track record. So now I felt good about showing you my track record, because it wasn't just me telling you what we did, somebody else verifying that.
Yeah.
So now I said, man, let's go raise the money first, because now we're a stronger buyer. Now we don't have to pay up to, hey, give me the deal. Right now we're like, guys, I got $16 million in the bank. You've already dealt with us before. You know, we're not going to jerk you around. Like, why wouldn't you? The certainty of close just goes through the roof. Sure. And you and I know that's how brokers get paid. That's how sellers get paid. Certainty of close matters. So we did it out of necessity to differentiate ourselves in a really hyper competitive market. Now in Cleveland, you don't have to do that.
No,
because there's not, 20 offers on any deal in Cleveland. Yeah, maybe there is. I don't know, but in Florida, it's not uncommon at all.
Yeah, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So talk to me about how your funds are structured. As much as you can. I don't know if they're 5 or 6B or C, but
they're C.
Okay, so I'm just curious to how they're structured and all.
Yeah, so here's what I try to do is align my interests with our investors. So our fees are ridiculously low. They're a 1% AC fee, 1% disposition fee, 1% asset management fee. That's it. Nothing crazy. Why? Because we're not here for the fees. We're here for the upside. You're here for the upside.
Yeah.
That's why you should be in real estate. Yeah, the cash flow is good, but that's not going to make you wealthy. The upside that makes you wealthy. You agree? So why do I want to skim fees off the top just to further aggravate my ability to get deals? So that's why it's an 80-20 split. Like, you don't need to be aggressive on your split after that. You just don't. So I try to structure everything so that I don't have to worry about myself at all. Is the investor doing well? If they are, well, I automatically do well. That keeps me focused on the right things, right? That's what's really, really important. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do, because that's going to make for a long-term successful business, right? I mean, people want to invest with people that perform for them and who are not, just taking as much fees as they can off the deal.
Sure. Well, and there's a simplicity to that as well. As somebody who does a lot of investor education, that I want to talk about that in a second. But I think sometimes you hear these crazy waterfall structures and different fee structures and all, and it's just like your head starts to spin. And when confusion sets in, a lot of times that leads to inaction right at the end of the day. But so for a fund structure, how much are you looking to raise? And then how many properties do you typically want to hold in any given fund? And then I'm assuming, like you said, this is a kind of add value and then sell at some point. This isn't like a refinance and hold situation.
Well, it both are possibilities. So it depends on the deal. We've got a syndication that we did 8 years ago, Arbors and Garden Grove in Winter Haven. Since then, we've moved rents like $685 a month. Everybody's got their money out. They got almost another double. It's still cash flows. They still get equity. Like, those people don't want me to sell. They would kill her, right? So, that's why, when we got into that deal, we thought it would be a 3 to 5 year hold, but there's not one investor that wants to sell that deal, because that would be silly. So typically our hold is 3 to 5, 4 to 6 years.
Okay.
We're doing value add, but people think, our last deal was a brand new deal right out of new lease up. It was a new constructed deal in St. Pete. And everyone's like, well, how is that a value add? Well,
Yeah.
it's a value because we're adding value. Remember, think about what happens to builders when they build. They're on a variable rate construction loan. Rates go up. They want to sell. And how we're taking that. So, and they lease it up, not maxing out market rents.
Sure.
So the value here is in management, and we're adding some more improvements to the property to just continue to make it really nice. So people should use the term value add and loosely define it. That Arbors at Garden Grove deal that I told you about, you know what our renovation budget was? Like $50,000. That's it.
Wow.
I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to spend an enormous amount of money and, completely renovate the whole property to make money. We just have to know how we're adding value to that property. We just don't open pray. That's the thing that, that matters to us. So our current fund, I said, we're at about $16 million to deploy. What we typically do is try to get 2 deals in each fund.
Okay.
So we'll put a deal like Fund 2 still has money to deploy. It will become a partner with Fund 4. Fund 3 happens to be a friends and family fund. That was a 506B. So we skip over that. Fund 4 has capital to deploy. That's where we're currently raising. And then that will have a deal with Fund 2. And then Fund 4 will likely have a deal with Fund 5. See, we'll continue to roll 2 deals per fund. That makes us always a strong buyer, always have money to deploy. And remember, this is good for everybody, right? Because investors are getting better deals just like we are.
Sure. From a deal perspective, is there anything? What do you look for? I mean, what do you look at? What do you look for? Is there anything specific that you like to see? Anything you don't like to see? I'm just curious. Kind of your mindset around property comes in. What's kind of looking for?
Yeah, neighborhoods are not negotiable. I mean, we've done tough neighborhoods. They're
coming out of Cleveland, sure.
Yeah, there's still good neighborhoods in Cleveland too. But the point is, most people grow up in this business in the tougher neighborhoods. And then 2 things happen as you mature in this business. Your asset quality improves and your discipline hopefully improves because you made a lot of mistakes. And that's what we do. So we're looking for 1 to 2, 250 units, 100 to 250 units. We're looking for even leverage going in. We're looking for that upside somehow, some way. We prefer newer assets. That's the other thing that happens. Typically, as you grow up in this business, you realize that these older assets become maintenance hogs. So you're like, I don't want to deal with that anymore. So you improve the age and the asset quality and the neighborhood quality. That's typically what happens. And that's exactly what we've done.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the investor education side. It seems like that's something that's very important to you. I'm sure you're using it as a tool to meet investors. Yeah, right, and to educate investors into what it is exactly that you do and all that kind of stuff. Is it more than that? Are you teaching people to buy properties as well? Talk to me about that side of the business.
Yeah, so it is both sides. So the one thing that gets me, I have a mission. I want investors to make good investing decisions. I developed a short little blurb on my website, 4 rules that I want your investors to follow to make sure that they're investing with the right people. And I want to push that message out because all the deals that I see go bad, usually they broke 1 or 2 of those. So experience is really important. And secondly, track record, but not just buying. You want them to go full cycle. Third, they need to be transparent. You need to do stuff like have Verivest come in and audit your stuff. And 4, they got to put investors first. Now, I've blown through those. It's on our website. You can take a look at it in more detail. But every time I see a deal go bad, there's usually 1, 2, sometimes more those rules that are broken. Now,
I like that.
Most people know, like, our business is about creating wealth through real estate. And when you come in and meet us, we're just trying to figure out, what do you want to do? Do you want to do your own deals? Do you want to be passive? Well, either one, it's a good idea to get some education. So some people go down the education side and say, I want to do my own deals. And we give you literally a turnkey process that we've used for 27 years. They'll use every spreadsheet, every single thing we do, we give it to you.
Nice.
And some of those people actually turn into investors. Some just stay on they want to do their own deal path. And then other people, they want to just take the underwriting portion, right? Because They know they're going to invest passively, but they want to have a clue about how to vet the sponsors a little better, right? And so that's the other side of our businesses that you can see it bleeds over. Most of our business bleeds over. What's important to me is I know we can help you figure out how to create wealth in real estate. And then we just had to figure out how it's going to fit into your life, and then we'll help you either side. So I'm passionate about this because my kids are grown now. I have time, before real estate was about me and my family, and it is, but now my whole life has changed because I went into real estate, and now I have the ability to help a lot of other people make that same change.
Yeah.
And it's a huge change. You know that.
Sure.
It's not insignificant. There's a reason rich people do this. There's a reason that people have made insane amounts of wealth do this. And if I can help you figure this out, I know that I've changed your life, and I'm proud.
Yeah, it's got to be a very rewarding and fulfilling part of the business, and hats off to you there, because I think a lot of people, they I don't know if I use the term selfish, but I've had some conversations where not everybody's as as happy to share with other people about what they've learned and things like that. So hats off to you there to do it. And like you said, it's a good way to help investors to understand what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, all that kind of stuff. And they can make the decision from there if they want to be active or they want to be passive, depending on their lifestyle and their goals, that kind of thing. So what do you think? What's kind of the goal moving forward? With the Florida market, there's a lot going on there. Do you see yourself kind of hunkering down there for a while? Would you ever entertain other markets and things like that? And then, and what's the goal for the funds and that kind of thing?
Yeah, great question. So Fund 4, we've already committed to our investors. It will likely be Florida based. Fund 5 will move into the just general Southeast. We're going to expand geographically. It's really important to me. Remember, you're giving me your money up front. I need to tell you what I'm going to do with that money. Yeah. So Fund 4, I've already told, most of the people in the fund, it's going to stick to Florida. So we're sticking to Florida because that's what I told you I would do in the beginning, and I'm not going to deviate from that. But Fund 5, it will expand. So what I care about most is that we're in a strong demand exceeds supply market. That's what I've learned. Cleveland, remember when you've had experience in Cleveland, I'm not dissing Cleveland. Cleveland's a wonderful town, but demand supply setup, like you're going into the wind there, right? Sure. And you're in a market like Florida where demand exceeds supply, the wind's to your back. And people, those are cool sayings, but in Cleveland, I would steal my tenants from the guy next door by offering a free month.
Sure.
I don't do that in Florida.
Yeah.
They show up from other places. So it is really a big difference. And if anybody thinks economics doesn't play a part in it, I mean, they're just wrong. It absolutely does.
Yeah. No, I think I talk about supply and demand all the time. I invest a lot in workforce, affordable housing. And so I talk about supply and demand every day. And I think sometimes it's those foundational things that maybe people get kind of lose sight of sometimes, and I think that's extremely important, not just from a macro, but from a micro perspective as well. I mean, so in the individual markets that you're investing in. So for Fund 5 and looking at other markets, what are you looking for? I'm assuming it comes down to supply and demand, that kind of thing. Anything else that would stand out, that you're going to look for in entering a new market?
Yeah, growth. Growth. Demand. I'm assuming demand supply means demand continues to outpace supply. I mean, that's all I need is a market where I'm not flying into the wind. Right. That's really important to me. If I can at least get neutral or better, it means have some population growth, employment growth. I love diversity of employment. That's really important to me because I don't want to ever be in a situation where I have concentrated revenue in one employer, for example. I just don't. Sure. Why? Because we're in a position where we can mitigate all the major risks. So why not do that? That just makes sense. We can't mitigate them all on the buy because you're never going to find the perfect property, but that's what we try to do. We've got enough experience in enough different markets now that we just know what it boils down to. And I would say the top things, demand exceeds supply in terms of the housing. Number 2, diverse economic growth. And 3, depending on the type of property you're buying, just how much new supply is coming on market. Because it could look good today, so you got to look out 12, 18, 24 months. I don't think a lot of new stuff's coming out of the ground now, but there's a lot of stuff that was in planning.
Sure.
They're not starting to plan new things now, but they did, and you've got to plan for that. And you got to just make sure that you understand what's happening. So they're macro things that you're right. Early on in my career, I was in Cleveland. I mean, clearly I didn't understand those macros, but once you experience those macro things, you'll make a massive difference.
Yeah. Well, Ken, how can people find out more about you and your funds, the education side of your business? How can they get involved?
Yeah, easy. KRIPartners.com. So KRIPartners.com. What'll happen is you'll go in and then decide you can check out both sides of our business, whether you want to become part of the education side, when you want to become part of the investor side. Most people actually do both. So KRIPartners.com, just reach out and let's get on the phone so that we can figure out what it is you're trying to do, because that's important to me. You've got to be doing what we're trying to do. We've got to get you in the right place in our firm. Well, I know we can help you. It just depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish, and that's really important to me.
Yeah, the alignment is crucial. Well, Ken, I appreciate you talking to us today and enjoyed the conversation. Wish you all the luck in the current fund and in your future funds. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. And thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I love it.